Okay, guys, we'll just start in, I guess 30 seconds. Um, and I hope all of you are safe and sound, especially I think Sydney and Melbourne are struggling quite a bit. I think the rest of the world too. We just hope everybody gets fine. Okay. Okay, I think let's start. Very good afternoon to few of you who are ahead of me, and good morning to the guys who are behind me in time zone. I'm in Perth. I'm Vikram Sareen. I am co-founder of Passwordless as well as Rubrics. So today we're going to go through something very interesting, which is the statistics and hurdles for going passwordless. And I think the whole idea of authentication has to become simpler, keeping the security much intact. So that's the essence of everything. So we cannot make it so much simple that it's not secure, and vice versa. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a very quick 1-minute video, a live demo actually, where I want to show you that how Passwordless works. So let's quickly jump into that. So here's my screen of my phone, iPhone, and this is where we are. So this is passwordless.com.au. So you can come over here. So again, you can come and register yourself, try it out for free. But what I'm going to show you over here is that how easy it is for an individual to go in and log in using passwordless. So as you would see, there is no password involved. So I'm coming over here. I'm entering my email ID. This could be any identifier that you want. And obviously for passwordless, there are a few options. One is obviously, which could be same device if my, machine had it. But what I want to show you is my phone, which doesn't have any app, and still it is able to take it ahead. Sorry, I think I've made a mistake or what. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, I think spelling mistake there. Yeah, okay. So I'm coming over here, logging in, and as you would see, I've been shown a QR code. There's no app installed on my phone. I'm just scanning it. It's giving me a token, ephemeral token. I'm coming inside. Again, I'm just looking at it. Now, this is where my PKI is playing in the backend, as well as it's asking me for the biometrics, which is what I'm going to do here. It could be Face ID, Touch ID. So in my case, I have enabled with Touch ID. I've done a Touch ID, and I have logged in. Now, geo, device, browser, time, everything is taken into account while this thing is supposed to go ahead. So what I've done is I have actually got inside my portal without even entering a password. So risk is minimal, maximum, compliance that you can achieve and taken it ahead. So less than a minute, I have tried to show you that what exactly could beautiful way of bringing passwordless into your workflow that can work for web or mobile application. So let's now deep dive into our focus area, which is the statistics as well as the hurdles which are there now, if you want to implement passwordless. So the first core definition we have to understand is that the passwordless is something which is bringing the lost value and power of PKI, which is the fundamental, underlining layer that is able to authentication, authorize, in a way, mutual authentication between the RP as well as the authentication server and the user for a specific app or a specific website, and also making the user use the biometrics, which could be on your phone or it could be on your device, like your Windows Hello, and essentially eliminate password. So it is a combination of a couple of things that are playing a role and bringing this particular technology into play. And this is definitely being empowered by Fido and then taken ahead. Now, I would like you to emphasize a little bit about more on the the remote work. So this is a rating which you can see from SideQ. And whatever you see over here, which is in red or orange, is saying that it is weak. So application security as well as remote access. These two are essentially, again, because of COVID, they have rampant a lot. But this is where the major lack is right now. So both of them are not scored very high. And obviously, if you look at other things like access control, physical security, and also coming in. So our area or focus area is these two over here, and then obviously going towards this particular part, which is what passwordless addresses. Now, I'm just sharing this slide. We will come back to this particular slide again, but this is a very interesting slide which actually talks about passwordless and username and password. So how the connections or how the the user authentication is being taken ahead. So obviously this was something which was made with a prediction and taken ahead. So we'll come back to this slide later towards the end of also. Firstly, I want to remove confusion. So what I showed you just now, which is what FIDO as a consortium has brought towards, and the demo that you saw from me just now was actually this particular part, which is FIDO WebAuth. Now, that FIDO WebAuth is what gives you the ability to, to do what I did just now. Then there could be other flavors, which could be passwordless MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. So there could be, geo device, risk-based authentication, something like that in the back end. Contextual, I would say, screening of the user, SSO experience, things like that. Then you would have passwordless, which can also be a one-time password because it doesn't have a password. So it's a one-time password, only gets used once, or a push notification which comes. So if you look at companies like Okta and a few others, what they do is that they actually confuse the hell out of customers because, one side you're giving me password, one side you're giving me passwordless, you call it MFA. What exactly are you trying to do? So it's a bit confusing. So when you look at the word WebAuth, that is where I would say is that your inclination should go towards. Then again, password with push, nothing wrong with that. Another way of doing multi-factor. And then lastly, sorry, spelling mistake here, passwordless with social login. So when you log in through Google, when you log in through, Facebook or Twitter, LinkedIn, then again, you're using, a form of saying that, hey, I'm not using my password for this particular website, but I'm going in. Again, confusion, a lot of confusion, but please try to understand there are many ways of skinning the cat, but what we are, or the right way would be, is to go ahead over here. Again, I shouldn't use the word right way. What is the approach we are taking ahead is the FIDO WebAuth. Now, I'm going to quickly present to you a couple of statistics, which are going to be either device driven. Why? Because that's the most fundamental way how you're going to authenticate. Then the user experience point of view, that what are the shortcomings and where the opportunities could be for you to fix those problems, and obviously system readiness. So when we talk about applications, when we talk about systems legacy to SSO and all these other things that are coming in. So first, when you start off globally, when you look at the traffic, most of it is coming from the mobile, and then it's going towards the desktop, and then it's going towards the tab. So that's very critical for us to know that most of the traffic is coming through mobile, which is good news. And the second statistics is that you have Android, which is leading, and then obviously coming towards iOS, but Windows, which is mostly the dominating desktop that is being kind of pushed across, and then obviously you have Mac and others coming in. Third is that if you look at specifically on Windows, which is coming over here, is that you have Windows 10. Now, Windows 10, some of them will have the Hello ability, which is able to do passwordless. But the older versions, which are these versions, they don't have it. So this is one of the biggest problems right now. That means almost 28% of desktops will not have the ability. Linux, desktops will not have the ability. So that device and OS is surely a restriction, but it is more on the desktop side, not on the mobile side. Now let's look at the other two statistics very quickly. The Android is having most of them, anything above 7 supports FIDO. So that means this one goes away and rest everything is supported. So it's, I think I would say almost, a huge number, 90 plus, of your devices which are running on Android will be able to use the experience which I showed you, which is appless just through the browser. On the iOS side, again, anything which is above 14.2 is supported. So if you look at it, most of them over here which are being used, because Apple forces you to upgrade, so that way it is mostly latest, and that's why anything to do with iOS you will be able to use that. So that's a very good news if you're going for it. So mobile definitely should be a consideration when you're taking it ahead. Now you can do a lot of ways. So that the same device, if you're coming from the same desktop machine, let's say Windows or Mac, the new Macs, or you can do appless, which is what I showed you was a no download, pure browser based, or you could have an app like because you're making a gaming app or a banking app. So over there, you would or should go for iOS, Android embedded way of doing it, either through QR or push, or through a ephemeral token getting generated. Now let's jump into a couple of more statistics. So what goes wrong is that if your password reset, all these things are not too hard, then 46% of people drop out. Now that's a very big number. And if you're an e-commerce portal, or if you're a transactional, based, revenue generating platform, B2B, B2C, whichever it is, it's a huge, 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 I would say downfall. 46 is a huge number. And that also translates to the next number, which is there is a 28% drop and people abandon because they are not able to go ahead with the transaction. So you need to look at transaction authorization, login, all these things in a very, very simple way with no, I would say no effort at all kind of approach to make sure that there is no drop, there is no abandonment, and there is no drop in revenue or in terms of experience. The next is if customers don't like it, again, very interesting statistics. 50% of will switch to a competitor. Let's say, especially if you're doing, commerce or trading, those kind of platforms, and if they are not able to log in. So, the essence is that if you are able to give them experience, which is very easy, you are able to keep them. If it's hard, then they move away. And if you have a bad experience, then you will lose 80% chances that you will lose that person. So, sorry, again, when you're talking about applications, I've just put this slide for one reason, is because you will not have just a mobile app or a web app. You might have remote access apps. You might have apps which are legacy, new apps, cloud-based, on-prem. So when you're looking at passwordless, you need to look at, what exactly is your requirement and which is the right way, right device, right OS, right customer experience that fits you. So it's a very, very critical aspect that you need to look into. Now, again, going back, so this is what is more interesting is from an operational cost point of view. So if you have a human involved, the cost, let's say, half an hour, 1 hour of cost, in developed countries shoots up to $70. So if you're having 10,000 users, you're roughly spending about $1 million if you're, dealing with password, password resets, account resets, authorization of transactions, account abandonment, all these kind of things that are coming in, which are, I would say, help desk costs. Then the second is service costs. Now, service costs are essentially where you're providing a service. So let's say if I'm saying, okay, hey, I will send you an OTP, via text message. And if you have 1 million users and you're spending this much, per message, you're spending almost, I would say, almost about $90,000 per annum, which is a huge cost. And that's only for one message. If you shoot up to 2 or 3 messages where people are coming in, then the cost goes up a lot. So the service cost, which can be totally used for marketing or sales or any other activity, or more customer acquisition, this particular money can be totally saved. The previous slide also, money can be totally saved, when you're thinking about going towards passwordless. Then again, if you have passwords, you have GDPR compliance, you have risk evaluation. So if you're looking at all that, then this is the tentative cost that will come in because of your backup audit reporting, which you have to do, if let's say you're doing, PCI DSS or, other stuff like that. So if you're doing roughly around 10 apps, then this is the cost. It could be much higher, if you have more applications which are going ahead. Now, I've taken Hyper Report, excellent company which offers passwordless, I would say collaborate or, compete. So we strongly believe that we learn from our, from the market. And I think Hyper has done a very good job. Now, this was one of the reports which they did last year, I think November, December. So just about a month old. So what was very interesting in this report was that the term of passwordless MFA. Now, as I explained you, earlier, it's a very, very different way. So it is not really truly passwordless way, but it is a MFA way. Now, in that, what typically solutions do, like Okta also does that, is that they will give you a shared secret, which is a OTP or SMS code. Now, that is the big trouble because 61% of apps that are supposed to be passwordless actually are throwing a secret, a shared secret, which kind of beats the purpose. And that's a big number. So I won't say that, this is the right truly way of doing, passwordless, but again, that's interesting statistics you have to know because this adds to a component of extra step to the users, right? Because they have to read something, key it in, or they have to do something. And that is a problem over here from an experience point of view. And secondly, it is not truly passwordless. Okay. Second is that mostly people who are remotely working. So I think reiterating what we realized earlier also, that people who are remote working, people who are outsiders like contractors and partners, and also your end customers. This is where the focus is right now. I personally feel, is that this is the part which is the most painful one. But looking at Android and iOS, you should be able to look at this as a much better way of doing it. Because if you have 1 million customers over here, and you have 100 or 200 or 500, vendors and employees or 1,000 employees, this is still manageable. But this is where the major chunk will go. So I think in next 2 to 3 years or 5 years, this is what I see will go much up, even though these are addressed very well with passwordless. So something that works for you in the future is going to be this particular element to help your customers to have a simple experience. Another very interesting aspect, even though I'm a millennial, the people who are accepting passwordless are more, I would say, on a higher age scale. That means, or wiser people. I think they're wise. That's why they're going for passwordless. So what they're doing is, or what they're thinking is that if you look at this age bracket, 54% of people are saying is yes. And my father, falls under, this particular category. He's almost 74 now. And he says, Vikram, I cannot handle passwords. Give me something simple. And this is where exactly it comes very handy, because on my device, I just press, I just do a face, or I do a, touch, and the transaction goes through, or I authorize. Now, that is one of the best ways a old person can handle this particular part. So spot on. Hyper did a good job, looking at whether old people are taking it ahead. And this is something which we are also working with a couple of age care to actually bring this to the old people, to the wiser people, I must say. The last one, which I want to cover over here, is that passwordless technology if in today, how does it impact? So most of the companies, I would say almost 50%, are saying that they don't have passwordless, or they are not thinking, of deploying passwordless right now. So, okay, I wouldn't say thinking, but they are not in the paradigm of saying, okay, let me use passwordless. Now, in my next few slides, you look at a couple of statistics which will actually explain you why this is 48 and what justifies over here. So again, just to take it ahead, the last slide from Hyper is that when choosing a password solution, what factors are more important? I think ease of use, definitely, hands down. Ease of integration, definitely. So OpenID, SSO, Radius, SDK, whatever it takes, QR code, the best way to do it. Obviously, cost. I think one of the big gains of passwordless should be that for your support or for your service or help desk cost should be minimized, because this is some technology which does not depend on per transaction. It can be actually per user flat kind of costing that can be expected. So if you're looking for a vendor, you should demand that, hey, give me a price which is much more aggressive. Why? Because this technology can enable you with that. Lastly, time to deploy. SaaS is the right way to go ahead. If your restriction is with regulators that you have to deploy it on-prem, then go for a system that is ready to deploy. Like platform like ours, does not take more than a week to get deployed on-prem. If you're on a SaaS, less than 3 minutes, you have the account. Lastly, the human resource which is coming in. Now, this is the part which is, I think, still a big chunk, of pain, that comes from here. So this is something which we have to look into, as an industry, like how do we address the problem of the human element or the skill part. So what are the hurdles? Let's quickly go through them. 67% companies are saying there's a skill shortage. Now, this is not something only for passwordless. I think this is something which is for, in general, cybersecurity. Most of the companies struggle with putting a good cybersecurity team ahead. So this is something that is getting reflected again, that people or the companies do not have the right skills in the team to understand how the passwordless can help them out and get integrated and use ahead. So I think best way is to look at a company, look at a partner who can help you out with that. You don't have to insource it. This is going to be a short project, 3-month project, where you can take it ahead. The second thing is mobile, personal or not. So now, if you have employees, if you have customers, now if you have employees, are you going to give them your own phone? Because sometimes people don't like to use their personal phone for office work, and other way around. So even though all the mobile phones do support passwordless, but the device itself, whose ownership is that? So that becomes a bit of a question which is driving to the fact that, hey, do I use passwordless? Because it depends on the person's biometrics on the phone, and people think that the biometrics is getting stolen or copied on their server, which is definitely not the case. But still, those questions come in, and that's become a problem. Just advice, you need to explain and educate your employees that this is nothing to do with taking their data. It is purely to authenticate. So there is no data like biometrics data that is traveling to the server. It is just a step that happens on the device. So if they own the device and it's just browser based, I think that would be the best way for them to take it ahead. Don't ask them to install an app, but give them the browserless or the appless experience. Oil and water. Now, what is this is that if you really look at it today, and if I have a technology where I say, okay, Microsoft, I have a token, can it work with AWS? AWS, can it work with Google? No, it does not work. Identity authentication is traditionally fragmented, broken, and disconnected. And that is one of the biggest problems right now. Either you have one vendor, you have to do everything with them. But if you have legacy apps with older apps, which are you cannot take them out, then it's a big problem. You still have to work towards. And this is one of the biggest showstoppers right now in terms of adoption. My advice or suggestion is take the new apps, go with the vendor who's able to give you more flexible way of doing things. Use standards like SSO, OpenID, SAML, and all that to help you. And eventually, I think when you revamp your legacy, then it takes it ahead. Or use reverse proxy as a way of doing it. Now, there are still, you cannot convince everybody. So 22% are still not convinced that, the benefits of going passwordless. One of the key reasons also is that there is a very mixed signal that is coming in the market. On one side, if you look at, companies like, Okta, even Microsoft and others, Duo, what they do is that they actually, give you the option of downloading their app through push. Then they have the password policy, which is through AD. Then they have the passwordless, FIDO, and then they have the risk-based authentication. So now, when you tell customers that, hey, I have this old way of doing things, and I have this new way of doing things, then they totally get confused. So I think there has to be a very clear way of telling them that where passwordless is benefiting, where passwordless does not benefit. Like, for example, if I am looking at frictionless e-commerce, login experience, it shouldn't go to passwordless. It can be done using adaptive authentication or absolute authentication, which is embedded, hidden inside, and all that, right? So it's a different use case, a different security. So passwordless does help in many use cases. In some use cases, it might not help. So that is where we have to look at it. So these people are not convinced, might be because their application doesn't need it. Now coming back to the, to this particular, slide, which we started, way back. Now this is where we are. So if you really look at it up, and what we have also noticed that there is a good uptake of passwordless, and then obviously password is not going away, so it's going to stay there. And I think it's also to do with the psyche that when you know something and you have always been doing it because of the habit for last 10, 20 years, it's not going to change. So what will happen, I think, in next 2 or 3 years or 4 years, you're going to see much more. So I feel that personally, it will be much faster now because of COVID. It will hit much faster. So 2024 or 25 is where we will see that you will see that most of the applications are passwordless using, biometrics and all that. And there is a convergence over here where, kind of, it might not be a difference like whether you use password or passwordless, but that's where it will merge. So I think another 1 or 2 years, we will be able to take it on and, merge. And one of the key reasons is obviously because of COVID, we are working remotely. Devices have become almost 100% cover, biometrics. More uptake or the newer devices, like your desktops, laptops will have biometrics coming in. You'll have more standardization. Hopefully, multiple applications or the giants like Microsoft and Google will start, consolidating using SCIM, or OpenID as a more standard way of doing it. Legacy applications will go away in next 2 to 3 years. There will be more convergence in terms of, hybrid from cloud and on-prem will come more closer. So I think with all this happening, I think this is what will, take us ahead. So with that, I would just say that you can check out, passwordless.com.au, go try it out. It's available for any web, mobile, Radius, VPN, any application that you want. It supports OpenID also. You can protect your APIs and resources too, and enjoy. So with that, if there are any questions, please do message me personally or to my team. And again, this was just an information sharing session, just talking about what exactly is happening in terms of the statistics and hurdles of passwordless. Yeah. Thank you so much, and all of you stay safe and sound. Cheers. Bye bye.